Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so pleased that you're joining me today. I'm coming to you from my beautiful office in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I think that I have an excellent show for you today. We're going to be talking about options and priorities and the interconnection of those things. And as a bit of a teaser, I suppose, the bottom line of it is everything kind of depends on your priorities, right? What you want to accomplish. And so we're going to be talking about the importance of setting those kinds of goals and really giving some significant thought to what is it that you actually want. Is it just the stuff that you see up on TV? The ads that flash by, while you're doing your Facebook feed, is that what you really want, or is there something more? And so I'm gonna talk about that today. I'm gonna talk about how that impacted and resulted in me being exactly where I am right now, which is exactly where I think I need to be. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get started. Um, I was thinking about this the last few days, actually. One of the interesting things about my particular situation right now is I'm not going to court, and at least right now at the moment, because I'm in New Mexico. And so I'm working on a variety of cases and a variety of projects and other things, but I don't have that 9 to 5 calendar at all. My day is my own. It's like every day's sort of a weekend, except for there's things that need to get done. That kind of weekend, you're like, yeah, I got a little bit of free time, but I also have a few things I got to move the needle some. So I've been thinking a lot about that and kind of came to the tentative conclusion that um, what I wind up doing each day really is based on the things that I think are important. And what's another word for that is your priorities. What are your priorities? What are the things that you actually want to accomplish? And the challenging days that I have are the days that I didn't really set a priority, or none of the things that are on my list have kind of risen to that point where they're important, or super important. It doesn't mean that they don't need to be done. And this is the thing. If it's something that actually doesn't need to be done, then don't do it. You should never waste a second of your energy on something that should never be done. Okay. So I'm talking about things that, are on the list that need to get done. They're not make or break. They're not super high priority. They're not sexy. They're not fun or interesting. Not something that I would say has a priority, but at some point you got to just suck it up and get it done. And that is an interesting challenge when you're in the fortunate situation like I am right at the moment, that uh I don't have like super high priority things. I've got several cases that are very, very important to the clients, and I'm working on them, but they're off in the future. I'm waiting for other information. I've done everything that I can do to move the ball. And so, it's a little bit of a wait and see. When's the court, when the DA, when everybody's going to be ready to actually get, some of these last cases tried and that sort of thing. So it's been a very interesting few weeks because of that. And it was certainly something I needed. I needed some time off. I was very tired. But that led me to the other thought. So the things that I wind up doing are the priorities, but the question is, will your priorities change when your options change? So how do I want to say this? As you continue to progress and learn more, figure out more, hang out with different people, there's the old Stephen Covey, and I'm sure other people said it before him, and certainly have said it after him. You know, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And so if you think about that for a minute, if you're not really happy where you are, then maybe you need to consider, are there other people that perhaps can help you get where you want to go? Um, that doesn't mean that you dump your friends. It just means that uh, if you want to learn to be a great lawyer, let's cut right to the chase. If you want to learn to be a great lawyer, you need to spend time around great lawyers. You're not going to become a great lawyer if you're hanging out with people who don't know what they're doing, or who don't care, or don't put the time in, or just for whatever reason aren't particularly good. You need to hang out to the best of your ability with people who actually are good and that you would want to learn from. You want them to drag you up. When I was a young lawyer, a very, very long time ago, I used to hang out in the bars with all the old senior lawyers, and I would listen to their stories, and I would listen to the things that they did and the tactics that they used, and and the ones that worked and the ones that didn't work. Not everything works, right? And sometimes the story is, hey, I tried this and that was a complete disaster. I've had that situation, and you learn from it, and you modify your behavior so that you don't repeat it. But I learned so much sitting at the feet of experienced lawyers. Now, 30 years later, I wouldn't. Some of them were excellent, excellent lawyers. I mean, really, really super good lawyers. Others, in hindsight, as I look back, they were okay, but they were better than I was at the time. I had a bar card with ink that was still wet, and I'm sitting there listening to senior lawyers who have tried who knows how many cases, 100 cases, 90 cases, whatever, a lot of cases, have done a lot of work, have been in the trenches for a long time, been public defenders for a very long time. People, that I liked, and I learned a ton. And my point is that if you want to be something, you want to be a great architect, you need to hang out with architects. If you want to be a great bicyclist, you need to go out and hang out with people who ride, right? You're not going to learn this stuff by yourself. And the same thing, you want to be a good musician, which is one of my quests now. You need to hang out with people who are good and who are dedicated and who want to play and who want to improve. And then you go in and you learn from them. I'm never embarrassed by being the least experienced, or arguably the worst player in the group, because I'll get better. I'll get better fast, because I don't want to be the weak link. So if I join up with a group of people, or play with a group of people that are certainly above my skill level, that's great. If they'll have me, and I'm not a half bad bass player, so I can play with as long as as long as I don't get too sophisticated, I can play with other people. But this is kind of a long-winded way of talking about the fact that reaching out to people and deciding a priority. Hey, I want to be a great lawyer, and then start asking yourself the question: well, what is it that one needs to do to be that? And there's not one right answer. I mean, there are, there's a Jerry Spence Ranch, and there's other places where you can go and learn and spend time with other like lawyers. That's why, for years and years and years, I used to go to the death penalty conference in Monterey, because from my perspective, those were the best lawyers in the state, certainly handling the most serious cases at a time when I was doing it, where, there was a realistic possibility that somebody could be executed. I think today, there's a moratorium on it, and it's less of a reality. But the bottom line is the best lawyers, in the state, and arguably, in the country, would show up, and having a drink with them at the bar, listening to their questions, listening to the way they do things, listening to their thought process, all was really, really critical in helping me get an opportunity to, really think things through. And I've tried cases in which the district attorney was seeking the death penalty, and fortunately, I don't have anybody on death row. I never lost anyone to the death penalty, which was huge. Santa Clara County, where I was trying these cases, was very, very conservative, and they definitely were returning death verdicts at that time. So, and the beauty of it is I got to hang out with a guy named Brian Scheckmeister, who was the smartest guy I had ever met. And he took me under his wing. I mean, I literally, had been a lawyer for like 30 seconds, and he was working with me. And he dragged me up, and then within 5 years, I'm writing the motions manual for the death penalty conference. I had, had a few kind of unique motions that I had put together that I threw in there, and then I, used a bunch of other people's stuff. I didn't invent everything, but I reviewed everything. And what an opportunity that was. That was a great opportunity. I mean, I was, 30 years old, and been practicing law for, about 5 years. And here I am writing, the sample, the template kind of motions for these kinds of cases for all these great lawyers. And that was because I had the opportunity to, I chose to hang out with people that I knew would be successful. Those people put me in the place that I wanted to be. And then I had the good sense to say yes. Make no mistake, doing that manual was a pain in the ass. That was a lot of work. My ego was on the line. My, reputation was on the line. My office's reputation was on the line. Brian's reputation was on the line because he recommended me for it. And so I had to get it right. And so, I took the option of saying yes. And as a result, there were other things that just didn't get done. I had to make that one of my priorities. When I wrote the book Legalese, The Ultimate Guide on How to Survive a Law Practice, I was actively practicing law at that, when I wrote that a couple years ago. I mean, I had a full-on caseload. I was completely responsible for, as a senior lawyer, I was the guy. And I had to make a priority. I said, I want to write this book. This book is important. I think this book is important. I really wish, every lawyer would read it. Nobody would ever, let me put it a different way. Everybody would benefit from reading it. There is something in there that would help every single lawyer I have ever met, or can even imagine. There's just, good ideas. And I'm not saying I got all the answers to all the questions. What I'm saying is that I've been through a lot of these things. I understand about sleep deprivation. I understand about not valuing your time and giving it away. I understand, about, the challenges of small business owners trying to figure out, do I sleep? Do I do this? How do I afford to pay for all these people? I understand all those stresses. I've been there. I lived it for years, in large part because I didn't know any better. And then I decided to change my options. My priorities came more in focus. I was like, I cannot keep doing this. So then I made options. I started to reach out and look for opportunities to start hanging out with people who actually knew what they were doing about running a business. See, I had spent my first 20, almost 30 years, close to 30 years, worrying about being the best lawyer I could be and hanging out with the best lawyers I could find, and and all of that. But being a good lawyer and being financially successful as a law firm owner are two totally different things. And what I found is that my compatriots, my peers, they didn't know how to do it, and they weren't making the kind of money that they, in my opinion, they should be. And regardless of what anyone else was doing, nobody was sharing that information with me, and that wasn't what I wanted. So I started to, really figure it out. I changed my priorities. I started working in my business as opposed to just on my business, strategizing, bringing in people, figuring out what was the best marketing, figuring out what was the best systems that would, not only work but work for me. Right, the greatest system in the world, if you won't do it, is a terrible system. So it's got to be a system that you'll do, but it also has to be a system that works and doesn't require your attention. This is the key. So anyway, I got just a couple minutes, and I just wanted to try to bring this to a point in that you got to decide what is important to you. And once you actually decide what's important to you, then you need, in my humble opinion, you need to start thinking about what are the strategies that would get you to that point. What would you have to do? Forget about whether it's possible or not possible. What would you have to do to get to that place that you want to get to? Who would you have to hang out with? Who would you have to talk to? Who would you have to, how much money would it take? How much time would it take? You start thinking, you got to start thinking all of these things through and then looking for options. you know, um, if you want to be a good musician, you got to hang out with other people who play. You can't just watch YouTube all day. You'll get better, but at the end of the day, the best way to become a good musician, at least in my opinion, is you got to play with other people. And I would think that 99% of good musicians would say exactly the same thing. You got to play with other people, right? Um, you if you want to be a great lawyer, you got to hang out with great lawyers. You got to find them. Who are they? Can you work for them? Can are they, willing to make the investment? Are you willing to make the investment to be a great lawyer? Recognize that you don't get that automatically. It takes work. It takes commitment. It takes a real desire, and it takes an investment. It's going to take an investment of your time. It's going to take an investment of your money, or if you've got a boss who's going to pay for it, of their money. If you want to go to the Jerry Spence ranch, which I think would be great, especially for non-public defenders, but even for public defenders, um, that costs money and it takes time. And so you got to make investments. You got to read books. If you want to, do the kind of work that I've been doing, you got to stay up on what are the studies of sex offenders and recidivism rate. I mean, I've known for years and years and years that the recidivism rate for sex offenders was incredibly low, even though all this legislation came out that talked about it being, super high. That just wasn't true. And I knew that that wasn't true. And that was part of my everyday battle and dealing with those kinds of cases because I made myself an expert in it. And my point is that if you want to be top notch at anything, you're going to have to invest. You're going to have to make it a priority. And if it makes it a priority, then you don't mind spending the time. If you want to learn to play guitar, like one of the things I'm working on right now, I got to spend the time. I just got to spend hours of it. I got to play every day. And I see improvement. I'm never going to be, Eric Clapton. That's not what I want. I just want to be able to play and sound, decent and have fun with it and be able to play with other people. That's my priority. And so that's the amount of work that I'm prepared to do. If I wanted to be like Eric Clapton, boy, I'm getting a really late start in life, but I'd have to be willing to put in, 3-4 hours a day and take multiple lessons and all of that. So anyway, the whole point, let's get it to the point. Figure out what your priorities are. And then start looking for the opportunities and the options, because as you find opportunities, there goes the wolf at 20 minutes. as you find the opportunities and then the options will grow. If you get the opportunity to hang out with somebody who's successful, they're going to introduce you to other people, and all of a sudden, you're going to be connecting with folks that you wouldn't have otherwise, because you made a choice to move forward. I mean, you made it a priority, and you developed a strategy to follow it. And that's the ticket, man. There ain't nothing easy about any of this stuff, but it's not terribly complicated either. You just got to spend the time thinking about it. All right, everybody. I hope you all have a great week. And just remember, be grateful for what you do have. I mean, just because you want more doesn't mean you shouldn't be grateful for exactly what you have. Be grateful for what you do have, but you got to be willing to work for what you want. And whatever that is, and set that as a priority, strategize and figure out your options, and you'll get there. So be grateful for what you got and be willing to work for what you want. All right, everybody, y'all take care.